That night, I asked just one question. Why? And took the first punch right on the porch while the neighbor's camera recorded everything. Mom stood 3 steps away. Didn't intervene. He whispered, "Shut up. Nobody's going to believe you." When I hit record on my phone, I finally understood to survive. I had to turn humiliation into strategy and maximize the light. My name is Morgan Hale, and I've spent the last 6 years as a paramedic at Front Range EMS, saving lives in Pine Ridge, Colorado. I know how to stop bleeding, restart hearts, and keep people breathing through their worst moments. But that October night on my mother's porch, I couldn't stop my own blood from dripping onto the weathered pine boards beneath my feet. I'd only come to ask about my father's life insurance money, the payout that vanished like morning mist after he died 10 years ago. Simple question, where did $30,000 go? The truck he'd left me, his prized Ford F-150, had mysteriously transferred to Roy Whitaker's name 3 years back. Another simple question, how Roy didn't like questions. The porch light cast its sickly yellow glow across his face as he shoved me through the sliding door. "You ungrateful little bitch," he spat, bourbon thick on his breath. "Coming here, disrespecting your mother's house." It's a legitimate question about my father's. His fist connected with my cheekbone before I could finish. The crack echoed across the yard, sharp enough that Mr. Delgado's motion sensor light flickered on next door. I tasted copper immediately, felt the warmth spreading inside my mouth. My phone, already recording in my jacket pocket, captured every word. Mom Elaine stood in the doorway, wine glass trembling in her hand. She wore the same anxious expression she'd perfected over the years, the one that said, "Please don't make this worse." 3 steps. That's all the distance between us. 3 steps she didn't take. "Roy, please," she whispered, but it was directed at me, not him. Always at me. Always the peacekeeper's burden on my shoulders. He grabbed my collar, pulled me close enough that I could see the broken blood vessels in his eyes. "You think you're so smart with your medical degree, driving around in that ambulance like you're somebody. Your daddy's money. That money kept this family afloat while you were playing hero. I was 18 when he died. That money was for college." Another hit, this time open-handed across my ear. The ringing started immediately, that high-pitched whine I recognized from blast injuries we'd treated. My training kicked in. Stay conscious, protect your head, document everything. "Nobody's going to believe you," Roy hissed, his grip tightening. "You know who runs this town, who signs my poker buddies' paychecks down at the station. You're nothing but a bitter daughter trying to break up her mother's happiness." Through the ringing, I heard it, the subtle whir of Mr. Delgado's security camera adjusting its angle. The old man was probably watching from his window, had been since the motion light triggered. Roy's back was to the camera, but his raised arm, the aggressive posture, my bloodied face all perfectly framed in high definition. I let my legs buckle slightly, played up the impact more than necessary. "Please," I said loudly, clearly. I just wanted to know about my father's insurance money, the $30,000, and his truck. Roy released me with a shove. I stumbled back, caught myself on the porch railing. Mom finally moved, but only to grab Roy's arm, to gentle him back inside like he was the victim here. "You're not welcome here anymore," she said to me, not meeting my eyes. "You always cause trouble. Always have to dig things up." Tessa appeared in the doorway, then my half-sister, 24 and glowing with her new engagement ring. She looked at my face, at the blood I was now stemming with my EMT jacket sleeve, and chose her side with silence. I stood slowly, dignified despite the blood dripping onto Mom's decorative welcome mat, the one that said "Family First" in cheerful cursive. My fingers found my phone, stopped the recording. 7 minutes and 32 seconds of pure evidence. "You just chose the wrong place to hit me," I said quietly, dabbing at my split lip. The camera was still running next door. The porch where he'd just assaulted me was visible from 3 different angles if you knew where to look. Roy laughed, ugly and confident. "Get the hell off my property." "Your property," I looked him straight in the eye. That's interesting. Since the deed's still in Mom's name. I checked. The last thing I saw before walking to my car was Mom's face, a flicker of something that might have been fear or might have been recognition. Roy had gotten sloppy, and I was done being the family member who kept quiet to keep the peace. My nose was definitely broken. I could feel the cartilage shifted left. But I smiled anyway as I drove toward the ER, phone already backing up the recording to 3 different cloud services. In emergency medicine, we have a saying the first hour after trauma is golden. Roy Whittaker had no idea his golden hour just started ticking. Growing up, I was the helpful child. That was my role, assigned before I even knew I was auditioning. Make breakfast for Tessa while Mom nursed another migraine. Work doubles at the grocery store to cover utilities. Change my father's oxygen tanks when the cancer got bad. Learn which medications went with which symptoms. I was 17 when he died. 18 when Roy appeared like a savior in a contractor's vest, promising to fix everything broken in our lives. He fixed things. All right. Fixed them so every repair required his signature. The life insurance payout, $30,000 meant for my education, disappeared into household expenses within a year. Dad's truck, his pristine 2008 F-150 that he'd maintained like a classic car, somehow needed Roy's name on the title for insurance purposes. Mom signed papers without reading them, grateful that someone else was handling the overwhelming details of widowhood. Don't upset the balance, Morgan. She'd tell me whenever I asked questions. Roy's been good to us. Good. That word twisted in my gut every time. Good was apparently letting Tessa pursue her art degree debt-free while I took out loans for EMT training. Good was renovating the kitchen while my father's medical bills went to collections under my name as next of kin. Good was Roy's new bass boat parked where Dad's truck used to sit. I became a paramedic because I needed to control something. In the back of an ambulance, there are protocols, clear chains of command, documentation that matters. When someone's bleeding out, you don't stop to consider their feelings. You stop the bleeding. You save them despite themselves. But at home, I was still that helpful child, watching Roy systematically erase my father from the house. Dad's tools sold, his hunting rifles Roy's now. The small workshop he'd built in the garage converted to Roy's man cave. And through it all, Mom smiled her wine-dulled smile and asked me why I couldn't just be happy for her. 3 months ago, I finally asked the question directly. We were at Tessa's engagement party, another Roy production, all show and surface when I cornered Mom in the kitchen. Where did Dad's life insurance money actually go? She dropped a champagne flute. It shattered across the tile Roy had installed last spring. Don't do this here, she whispered, already reaching for the paper towels, already cleaning up the mess like she always did. Then when it's been 10 years, Mom, that was my college fund. Roy handles the finances now. It's not we needed that money to survive after your father passed. Survive Roy makes $70,000 a year. You work full-time. Where did $30,000 go in 12 months? She looked at me then with something I'd never seen before. Pure panic. Drop it, Morgan. Please, just drop it. Mom, what did you sign? But Roy appeared in the doorway, all false concern and protective posturing. Everything okay in here? Babe Morgan causing trouble again. Causing trouble. Like I was still 12, complaining about unfairness. Like asking about my dead father's money was equivalent to throwing a tantrum over bedtime. That night, I went home and pulled every document I could find. Death certificates, insurance papers, bank statements I'd saved from helping Mom with bills before Roy took over. The paper trail was mostly gone, but computers remember everything. Email confirmations, digital signatures, a PDF of the truck's title transfer with Mom's signature shaky, uncertain, probably signed after her 3rd glass of wine. I started building my own documentation, screenshots, recording conversations where Roy would brag about his investments, his toys, his control over his family's finances. I learned that Colorado was a one-party consent state for recordings. I learned that financial elder abuse laws could apply even when the elder was complicit, I learned that Roy had 2 previous domestic incidents in Kansas, both buried under plea deals and moves across state lines. The helpful child was done being helpful, but I wasn't going to be reckless about it. In emergency medicine, you learn that the most dangerous patient is the one who seems stable right before they crash. Roy thought I was stable, cowed, controlled by the same family dynamics that kept Mom pouring wine and Tessa planning weddings. He had no idea I'd been documenting everything. Every bruise on Mom's arms, she claimed, came from gardening. Every time money went missing from Tessa's college fund. Every cruel comment he thought was just between family. The night he hit me wasn't the beginning. It was Roy finally giving me what I needed, undeniable, recorded, witnessed proof that he was exactly who I'd always known him to be. Now I just had to make everyone else see it too. The ER at Pine Ridge Medical was dead quiet at 11:45 p. Dr. Sarah Winters took one look at my face and didn't ask if I wanted to file a police report. She asked when. Full workup, I told her. X-rays, photographs, the whole forensic package. She knew me well enough not to question it. We'd worked trauma together for years. She'd seen me stay composed through compound fractures and cardiac arrests. If I was sitting in her ER with a broken nose and split lip, documenting everything, she knew I had a reason. The X-rays showed a hairline fracture in my nasal bone and bruising consistent with blunt force trauma. The photographs captured every detail in harsh hospital lighting, the purple blooming across my cheekbone, the swelling that was already distorting my face, the blood crusted in my hair where I'd hit the porch railing, each image time-stamped, each injury cataloged in medical terminology that would hold up in court. Domestic, Sarah asked quietly, printing the reports. Stepfather. But technically, we need to classify it as assault since I'm not a minor and don't live there. She nodded, understanding immediately. Domestic violence charges in Pine Ridge had a way of disappearing when the perpetrator knew the right people. Regular assault with documentation that was harder to bury. My next stop was Dave Martinez, a fellow paramedic who'd gone through an ugly divorce 2 years back. He knew the system, knew which lawyers actually fought and which ones just collected fees. Nora Vance, he said immediately when I called him at 6 Public interest lawyer, works out of Denver but takes cases out here. She doesn't play politics with the local boys' club. Nora answered her phone at 7 a.m. sharp, listened to my recording, and said, I can meet you at 10. Bring everything. Everything filled 2 boxes. The medical reports from the ER, the audio recording from my phone, 3 years of emails where Roy referenced managing the family finances, screenshots of the truck registration showing the transfer date, bank statements showing large cash withdrawals after Dad's death, the business card of Roy's poker buddy at the police station, Deputy Chief Richard Garrett. This is about more than last night, Nora said, spreading the documents across her conference table. This is about systematic financial abuse and now physical assault. The recording is gold. He admits to taking the money, claims ownership of assets that weren't his. What about his connection to Deputy Chief Garrett? That's why we file for a protective order in Denver County Court, not Pine Ridge. We establish jurisdiction based on the financial crimes crossing county lines, harder for his friends to interfere. She pulled up property records on her laptop. The house is still in your mother's name alone. The truck. However, that transfer is fraudulent if she signed under duress or incapacitation. She was drinking heavily then. Still is. Medical records of that. I can get them. I drove her to enough appointments. Nora made notes. Building a timeline. What about witnesses to the assault? That afternoon, I knocked on Mr. Delgado's door. The 70-year-old former engineer answered, holding a cup of coffee and looking unsurprised. I heard the commotion, he said before I could speak. Saw it too. That camera catches everything from your mother's driveway to the street. Would you be willing to share the footage? He hesitated. Roy's got friends. I don't want trouble. I'm not asking you to testify. Just the footage. You can remain anonymous. He studied my face, taking in the bruising that had turned spectacular overnight. Your father used to help me with my yard work. Good man. Didn't deserve what happened to his family after he passed. 10 minutes later, I had a USB drive with crystal clear footage of Roy shoving me, hitting me, grabbing my collar. His face was partially visible in profile. My injuries were undeniable. There's more, Mr. Delgado said quietly. The camera's been running for 2 years. If you need other incidents. Other incidents. Mom's gardening bruises suddenly had potential documentation. By the end of the week, I had a protective order filed, a formal demand for financial records related to Dad's estate, and a criminal complaint that bypassed Pine Ridge entirely. Nora had found Roy's previous incidents in Kansas both involved women, both involved financial exploitation alongside violence. His pattern is clear, she said. He targets vulnerable women with assets. Your mother was perfect recent widow. Life insurance payout, teenage daughter to intimidate, another daughter to manipulate. So what now? Now we build an airtight case, document everything, and wait for him to make a mistake. What if he comes after me? Nora smiled, sharp and professional. Then we add witness intimidation to the charges. Men like Roy always escalate when they feel cornered. We just have to make sure we're recording when they do. I thought about Tessa's engagement party coming up in 2 weeks. Roy's big show for the community. His chance to play successful family man for all of Pine Ridge's social circle. I know exactly when he'll make that mistake, I said. Tessa's engagement party was Roy's masterstroke of social manipulation. Scheduled for a Saturday evening in the backyard, complete with string lights, catered barbecue, and half of Pine Ridge's establishment invited. The deputy chief would be there, the bank manager. The country club crowd Roy desperately wanted to impress. Everyone who mattered in his carefully constructed image of success. I worked my regular day shift at Front Range EMS, treating overdoses and cardiac events while my phone buzzed with preparations. Tessa had texted me 3 times about the party nervous, probing messages that danced around whether I'd actually show, "Please don't make a scene." Her last text read, "This is important to me." Important. Everything was important except the truth. I responded simply, "I'll be there." My partner Jake noticed me checking my equipment bag during our lunch break. "You moonlighting as a spy now." "Something like that." I showed him the pen recorder legal, discreet. 8 hours of battery life. The backup was my phone, set to activate recording with a triple tap of the power button. Colorado's one-party consent law was about to earn its keep. "You sure about this?" Jake knew the basics, had seen my face 2 weeks ago. "Roy's got connections." "That's what I'm counting on. The more witnesses, the better." I'd spent the week preparing evidence packages, USB drives containing the security footage, medical records, and financial documents, each one password protected, uploaded to cloud storage with automatic sharing set to trigger if I activated it. Nora had coached me on what to say, what to avoid, how to bait without entrapment. "You want him to confess? Not attack," she'd emphasized. "Although if he does get physical again, make sure it's visible." The afternoon of the party, I sent Mom a formal letter via email and certified mail. "I'm requesting a family meeting to discuss the disposition of Dad's life insurance and assets. This is my final attempt at private resolution. If we cannot address this matter honestly tonight, I will pursue all available legal remedies. I have documentation of the $30,000 insurance payout and the fraudulent transfer of Dad's truck. Please be prepared to discuss repayment." She called me immediately, voice shrill with whine and panic. "How dare you threaten me right before Tessa's party? It's not a threat. Mom, it's a request for conversation. 8 years overdue. Roy will never, you can't just show up and ruin this for your sister." "I'm not ruining anything. I'm asking for what was mine, what Dad left for my education. That money is gone, Morgan. It's been gone for years. What do you want me to do?" There it was. Admission number 1, recorded. "I want to discuss it tonight. Privately. Just family." She hung up. I knew she'd tell Roy immediately. Knew he'd spend the afternoon working himself into a rage, probably drinking. definitely planning his counterattack. Men like Roy couldn't resist the challenge, especially on their own turf, surrounded by their perceived allies. I dressed carefully for the party, professional but non-threatening. A blazer that concealed the recorder, a scarf that covered the fading bruises. I wanted to look like the bitter daughter trying to keep peace, not the woman who'd spent 2 weeks building a legal case. The QR code flyers were my insurance policy. Simple design, the truth about Roy Whittaker, linked to a private folder that would only go public if I triggered it. I printed 50, tucked them in my bag. If things went badly, every guest would have access to everything: the assault video, the financial records, Roy's Kansas arrests. Jake texted me at 4:30 p.m. "You need backup. Just be ready to call 911 if I don't check in by midnight." Copy that. The sun was setting as I drove to Mom's house, the same house where Dad had taught me to change oil in the driveway, where he'd built Tessa a treehouse that Roy had torn down for safety reasons. The string lights were already glowing, and I could hear country music drifting from the backyard. Roy's playlist, another performance of American masculinity. I parked on the street, not in the driveway. Exit strategy. Always have an exit strategy. Mr. Delgado was watering his lawn. Watching. He gave me a small nod. His camera was running. Angle adjusted since our last conversation to capture more of the yard. My phone showed 7 p.m. exactly. The protective order was active but allowed for peaceful contact at family gatherings. Nora had been specific: "Don't violate it yourself. Let him make the mistakes." I triple-tapped my phone's power button, feeling the subtle vibration that confirmed recording had started. The pen clicked once in my pocket. Everything was live. Time to walk into the lion's den and make him roar in front of everyone who mattered. The helpful daughter was done being helpful. Tonight, I was going to be something much more dangerous, truthful. The porch, that same damned porch where Roy had broken my nose 2 weeks ago, was decorated with white ribbon and mason jar lanterns. I stood at the exact spot where my blood had dripped onto the pine boards, now scrubbed clean and gleaming with fresh stain. The irony wasn't lost on me. "We need to talk," I said when Roy appeared in the doorway, bourbon already heavy on his breath despite the early hour. He looked good shower fresh, expensive polo shirt, the successful contractor costume he wore for people who mattered. Behind him, I could hear the party building, voices and laughter, the clink of beer bottles. "You've got some balls showing up here," he said, but quieter than usual. Witnesses were everywhere. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. We can do this privately, or I can ask my questions in front of your guests." His jaw clenched. Deputy Chief Garrett was visible through the sliding door, holding court by the barbecue. Roy's reputation hung in the balance. "Fine. 5 minutes." He stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind him. The string lights cast dramatic shadows across his face. Perfect lighting for what was coming. I kept my voice calm, reasonable. The pen recorder in my pocket caught every word. "Where's my father's insurance money?" Roy. "Jesus Christ, not this again." $30,000. Mom admitted on the phone today it's gone. Where did it go? He laughed, ugly and confident. "That money went to keeping a roof over your ungrateful head. Your daddy didn't leave enough to cover his own funeral, let alone raise 2 kids. I was 18. Tessa was 14. The house was paid off. Mom had a job. Where did $30,000 go in 1 year? You have no idea what it costs to run a household. I do. Actually, I've been paying my own bills since I was 17. Try again." The bourbon was working on him, loosening his tongue. "Your mother needed help. She was drowning. I stepped up, took control, made the hard decisions. Like putting Dad's truck in your name. That truck is mine. I earned it. I've been carrying this family for 8 years. Earned it how? By sleeping with a grieving widow." His hand twitched that tell he had right before violence. But we were visible from the yard now. Guests were glancing over. He had to keep control. "I saved your mother," he hissed, stepping closer. "She was a mess. drinking herself to death, could barely function. I handled everything: the money, the bills, the decisions she couldn't make. So you took advantage of an alcoholic widow and stole her daughter's college fund. Stole? His voice rose slightly. I took what I was owed. You think it's free, playing daddy to another man's kids, that money was payment for services rendered. There it was. Clear admission, recorded in high definition. I pulled out my phone, showed him the protective order on the screen. You're not supposed to be within 50 feet of me. This is my house. No. Roy, it's Mom's house. Her name is on the deed. You're just a long-term guest who's worn out his welcome. His face went purple, the mask slipping. You little bitch. You think you're smart. You think your piece of paper means anything here? Garrett's inside. Half the police force is here. I know. I smiled. The kind of smile I'd learned from him all teeth. No warmth. That's why I filed in Denver County. Different jurisdiction. Your poker buddies can't help you there. If you don't leave right now. You'll what hit me again. Like 2 weeks ago, I touched my cheekbone where the bruise had finally faded. Mr. Delgado's camera caught that one perfectly. Want to go for round 2 with 50 witnesses. He grabbed my wrist, not violent enough to cause a scene, but firm enough to show dominance. The party lights caught the moment perfectly, the shadow of his bulk looming over me. You're going to regret this, he whispered. I'll destroy you. No one in this town will hire you. Your mother will never speak to you again. Tessa will cut you off completely. Probably, I agreed, not pulling away, letting his grip tighten. But you'll still be a thief, and after tonight, everyone will know it. If you think I'm giving you a penny. I don't want your money, Roy. I want my father's money. The $30,000 you stole. The truck you're driving. And I want it in front of witnesses, or I go public with everything. He squeezed harder, enough that I knew there'd be marks. The pen recorder captured his heavy breathing, the barely controlled rage. You have no proof of anything. I laughed, genuine this time. Roy, I'm a paramedic. Documentation is literally my job. I have every receipt, every transfer, every deposit. I have your confession from 30 seconds ago about taking what you were owed. I have video of you assaulting me. I have your arrest records from Kansas. His grip loosened slightly, the first hint of fear in his eyes. That's right, I continued. Jennifer Marsh, 2011. Patricia Holbrook, 2014. Both widows, both with insurance payouts. Both filed assault charges you pled down. You're not original, Roy. You're just a pattern. Inside, someone called his name. The party waiting for its host. His kingdom expecting its king. I pulled the sliding door open and stepped into the heart of Roy's carefully orchestrated paradise. 50 faces turned toward us: the bank manager, the country club president, Deputy Chief Garrett holding a beer by the kitchen island. Tessa stood frozen by the gift table, her engagement ring catching the light. Mom clutched her wine glass like a lifeline. I need 5 minutes, I announced, my voice carrying over the country music. Then you can go back to celebrating. Roy rushed in behind me, his mask hastily reconstructed. Morgan's just leaving. Family drama, you know how it is. Actually, I'm not. I walked to the laptop connected to the projector set up for the slideshow of Tessa and her fiancé's photos. The USB drive slid in smoothly. Since Roy insists on handling family business publicly, let's be public. Morgan, don't, Tessa pleaded. Please, not tonight. You're right. Tess, this should have happened years ago. The first image filled the screen, Roy's fist connecting with my face. Crystal clear from Mr. Delgado's security camera. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The timestamp showed 2 weeks ago, 11:47 p.m. That's private property footage, Deputy Chief Garrett started, but I cut him off. Obtained legally from a willing witness. Next. Click. The ER photographs. My face swollen beyond recognition. The medical report stating blunt force trauma. "This is inappropriate," someone muttered. "So is stealing $30,000 from a dead man's daughter." Click. The insurance payout documentation appeared, followed by bank records showing the money disappearing into cash withdrawals. Roy lunged for the laptop. I sidestepped, letting everyone see his desperation. "Turn it off." Why nothing to hide? Right. The audio started playing our conversation from the porch minutes ago. Roy's voice filled the room. I took what I was owed. "You think it's free, playing daddy to another man's kids. That money was payment for services rendered." Mom dropped her wine glass. It shattered across the hardwood, Merlot spreading like blood. "That's doctored," Roy shouted, but his voice cracked. "She's lying. Click." The next slide showed the truck's title transfer. Dad's signature obviously forged. He'd been dead 3 months by the date on the document. "Morgan, stop!" Mom's voice was shrill, desperate. "You're ruining everything." "No, Mom. Roy ruined everything. I'm just showing everyone what you've been too drunk to see." The room erupted. Garrett was on his phone, probably calling for backup. Tessa's fiancé pulled her aside, whispering urgently. The country club crowd backed toward the exits, their polite facade cracking. Roy grabbed my arm, harder this time, bruising force. "You vindictive little—" "Careful, Roy." I held up my phone, showing the recording app still running. "Every word, every threat, every touch is being documented, including this." Click. The police reports from Kansas appeared on screen. 2 women's names, dates, charges of assault and financial exploitation. "Jesus Christ," someone whispered. "He's done this before." Roy's grip tightened, the mask completely gone now, revealing the predator underneath. "You have no idea what I'm capable of." "Actually, I do." Click. Medical records appeared, not mine, but Mom's. ER visits over 3 years. Fell downstairs. Walked into a door. Gardening accident. All the classic excuses, all documented by mandatory reporter protocols I'd helped file as her emergency contact. The room went silent except for the projector's hum. Elaine, Mrs. Patterson from the church asked, "Is this true?" Mom stood there, wine-stained, shaking, caught between her daughter and her captor. For once, she couldn't pretend everything was fine. "I want my father's money returned," I said clearly, addressing the room but looking at Roy. $30,000 plus the truck. Or every person here gets copies of everything, and I file criminal charges Monday morning. You can't prove. I have your confession recorded. I have forensic accounting from a certified investigator. I have a pattern of behavior across state lines that makes this a federal matter. I pulled out the QR code flyers, fanned them like cards. 1 click, and everyone in Pine Ridge sees who you really are. Tessa stepped forward, mascara running. "Morgan, how could I? Our father died trying to provide for us, and this man stole that future. How could you not see it? He took care of us. He took everything from us. There's a difference." Roy released my arm, calculating. His kingdom was crumbling, witnesses to every second. Deputy Chief Garrett had stepped outside, distancing himself from the impending scandal. "This is extortion," Roy said weakly. "No, this is consequence." I set the flyers on the gift table, QR codes visible to everyone. "You have 24 hours to agree to repayment, full amount, or this goes viral, and you can explain to the FBI why you've been crossing state lines to defraud widows for over a decade." The projector cycled to the final slide, a photo of my father, healthy and smiling, standing next to his truck. The title underneath read, "David Hale, Devoted Father, Stolen Legacy." The party was over. The audience stood frozen. Roy exposed in the center like an actor who'd forgotten his lines. Mom swayed on her feet, finally seeing the man she'd chosen over her daughter's future. Nora Vance had been waiting outside the whole time. She'd positioned herself strategically by the garden gate with 2 Denver County officers' jurisdiction verified, no connection to Roy's poker circle. When Roy lunged at me the second time, shoving me hard enough that I stumbled into the gift table, she gave the signal. The officers entered through the back gate, badges visible, movements calm and professional. The party guests parted like water. Roy Whitaker, the senior officer, Badge Martinez, didn't wait for confirmation. We have a warrant for your arrest on charges of assault, violation of a protective order, and suspected financial fraud. Roy's face cycled through emotions, rage, disbelief, calculation. Garrett, tell them this is bullshit. But Deputy Chief Garrett was nowhere to be seen. His car was already pulling out of the driveway, abandoning Roy to his fate. "This is entrapment," Roy shouted, pointing at me. "She set me up. She came here to provoke me." I held up my phone, displaying the protective order. The order allows for peaceful contact at family gatherings. You grabbed me twice, shoved me once. All recorded, all witnessed by, I gestured to the stunned crowd, about 50 of Pine Ridge's finest citizens. Officer Martinez approached Roy slowly, cuffs ready. "Sir, please turn around and place your hands behind your back. You can't do this. This is my house. My party." Actually, Nora stepped forward, legal documents in hand. "The house belongs to Elaine Hale, and she just signed a temporary eviction notice." Everyone turned to Mom. She stood by the kitchen counter, pen still in her trembling hand, the document before her, stone cold sober for the first time all evening, maybe the first time in years. "Elaine," Roy's voice cracked. "Baby, what are you doing?" "What I should have done years ago," she whispered. The admission from the recorded audio played again on someone's phone. A guest had been recording the whole scene. Roy's voice echoed across his own party. "I took what I was owed." "Turn that off." Roy struggled as Martinez cuffed him. "This is private property. Public gathering," Nora corrected. "No expectation of privacy with 50 invited guests." Speaking of which, she clicked her tablet, and a notification chimed on dozens of phones simultaneously. "The QR code, Ms. Hale Prepared is now active. Every guest has access to the full documentation of Mr. Whitaker's activities." The sound of phones unlocking filled the air. Screens lit up with evidence bank records, medical reports, police files from Kansas. "Oh my God," Mrs. Patterson gasped, reading. "Jennifer Marsh, Patricia Holbrook, he's done this before." 3 times, I said clearly. "We're just the only family that survived it." Roy went silent then, finally understanding the scope of his exposure. Every person at this party had social media, connections, influence. By morning, his reputation would be destroyed beyond repair. Tessa's fiancé, Marcus, stepped forward. "We should go," he told her quietly. But then he looked at Roy, and his expression hardened. "Actually, no. I want to see this." The younger officer read Roy his rights while Martinez documented visible injuries on my arm, fresh bruises already forming where Roy had grabbed me. More evidence, more charges. "The federal prosecutor will be in touch about the interstate fraud charges," Nora announced to Roy, loud enough for everyone to hear. "The Kansas victims have been notified. They're very interested in pursuing a joint case." Roy's legs seemed to give out. The officers had to hold him up as they walked him toward the gate. The man who'd controlled our family through fear and financial manipulation was being perp-walked through his own party, past the barbecue he'd bought with stolen money, under the string lights he'd hung to impress people who were now photographing his arrest. But the real moment came when we reached the porch, that cursed porch where this had all started. Mr. Delgado stood at his fence line, camera clearly visible, recording everything. He gave me a small nod. Justice finally witnessed. Roy turned to look at Mom one last time. "Elaine, please, tell them this is a mistake." She met his eyes, steady for once. "The only mistake was letting you near my daughters." The words hit harder than any physical blow. Roy sagged between the officers, his empire of manipulation reduced to nothing. As they loaded him into the patrol car, I noticed Tessa standing by the projection screen. The photo of our father was still displayed. his genuine smile a stark contrast to the artificial world Roy had built. "Morgan," she said quietly, "the truck keys. They're in the kitchen drawer." It wasn't an apology, not yet, but it was acknowledgement the first crack in the wall Roy had built between us. The patrol car pulled away, lights flashing, taking Roy to a cell in Denver County where his connections meant nothing. Half the party guests were on their phones, sharing the scandal, ensuring Roy Whittaker would never prey on another grieving family in Colorado. I pressed the final button on my phone, sending the complete evidence package to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. Interstate fraud, pattern behavior, 3 victims across 2 states. Roy was looking at federal charges that would follow him for the rest of his life. Tessa's hand shook as she placed the truck keys in my palm. Dad's keys, still on the same worn leather fob he'd carried, a small compass dangling beside them. "So you never lose your way," he'd said when he attached it. The party guests dispersed in whispers and sideways glances, their Saturday night entertainment more dramatic than expected. Mrs. Patterson squeezed my shoulder as she passed. "Your father would be proud," she said quietly. Marcus guided Tessa inside, away from the ruins of her engagement celebration. I walked to the porch one last time, that wooden stage where this had all begun and now ended. The blood had been scrubbed away, but I could still feel the ghost of that night. Roy's whiskey breath, his certainty that I was powerless. Mom stood in the doorway, silhouetted by the kitchen light. For a moment, we just looked at each other across the distance Roy had built between us. "The money's gone," she said finally. "Most of it. He spent it on the boat, the renovations, things I can't get back." "I know. I signed papers. So many papers. I was drunk, Morgan. I was always drunk." "I know that too." She stepped onto the porch, into the yellow light that had witnessed everything. "Can you forgive me?" I thought about the helpful child I'd been, always fixing, always compensating, always understanding. That girl would have said yes immediately, would have rushed to comfort, to smooth over the pain. But I wasn't that girl anymore. "Maybe," I said honestly. "Someday, but not tonight." She nodded, tears silent on her cheeks. "The truck's in the garage." He kept it maintained. Some part of him knew it wasn't really his. I walked past her, through the house that echoed with memories Dad teaching me to play chess at the kitchen table Roy had replaced, his laughter in the living room Roy had renovated, his absence in every corner Roy had claimed. The garage smelled like motor oil and WD-40 exactly as it had when Dad was alive. The F-150 sat there, midnight blue paint gleaming under the fluorescent light. Roy had kept it pristine, probably to maintain its value. But when I slid behind the wheel, adjusted the seat back to where I needed it, I found something he hadn't touched: Dad's handwriting on a maintenance note tucked in the visor. "Oil changed 5/15/14. Remember to check tire pressure monthly? Love you, kiddo." 3 months before he died. A message waiting 10 years to find me. I started the engine. It rumbled to life immediately, strong and steady. Through the rearview mirror, I could see the porch, the string lights still glowing. The projection screen dark now, but the damage done. Roy's arrest would make the local news by morning. The FBI investigation would make regional headlines. The pattern of widow fraud would eventually go national, a cautionary tale of predators who hunt in grief's shadow. Mr. Delgado was still at his fence. He raised his hand in farewell. His camera would keep recording, protecting the next family, maintaining watch. I reversed out of the garage, out of the driveway, past the spot where I'd parked strategically for escape. But I wasn't escaping now. I was leaving. There's a difference. As I drove down the street, I thought about Roy in his Denver County cell. No poker buddies to call, no widow to manipulate, no stepdaughter to blame. By the time federal charges were filed, he'd face at least 10 years, maybe more. Jennifer Marsh and Patricia Holbrook would testify. Mom would be subpoenaed. The paper trail would bury him. But I wouldn't be there to watch. My part was done. I pulled into the empty lot of Pine Ridge High School, parked under the same oak tree where Dad had taught me to parallel park. The radio played something country and melancholy. I turned it off, sat in the silence, holding his maintenance note. No dramatic speech, no final confrontation, no tearful reconciliation, just a woman in her father's truck, carrying his compass, finally finding her way. The helpful child was dead. The victim was gone. What remained was harder to name, but easier to be someone who knew the difference between keeping peace and keeping truth, between family and manipulation, between justice and revenge. I'd chosen justice. It tasted like copper and felt like exhaustion and looked like Roy's empire crumbling under the weight of his own words. I took what I was owed. Now he'd pay what he owed, and I'd drive away in the truck he stole, using the compass Dad left me, toward whatever came after the ending. The headlights cut through the Colorado darkness as I pulled onto the highway. Behind me, the porch light still burned yellow against the night. Ahead, the road stretched empty, and mine. I didn't look back. Thank you for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts below. Your experiences and perspectives make this community richer.